You know what I'm saying?
Okay, if you don't know what I'm saying, then, that's the entire rest of this video.
Hello, my fellow hunters! Let's talk something very exciting. Do any of you remember Behemoth? Okay, great. Well, imagine Behemoth in Wilds. Not literally Behemoth, but that level of crossover collab. A whole-ass monster with a whole-ass armor set, giving us one of the most memorable, interesting, and fantastic hunts we've ever had. Well, I know you might be sat there thinking, okay, look, Wilds isn't out till next year, we don't have a release date, what the hell are you talking about? I mean, yes, it would be cool for Wilds to get collab monsters, of course it would, but it's a bit early for this. Well, maybe yes, maybe no, because, first and foremost, let me set the scene with a quote from the director-producer of Final Fantasy XIV, Mr. Yoshida. And what he said was thus. You might have already seen this, it went round at the time, it was cool to see. Producer Yoshida says that the quality of Capcom's Behemoth was so amazing that the Monster Hunter collaboration was a complete defeat. Let's collaborate with Wilds and release Bahamut next time. So that was exciting, and it is exciting, but of course it's just kind of a, bit of fun to have, and it's not exactly a lock-in, here we go! But we have had something more recently that's a lot more lock-in, here we go. Because, of course, Yoshida was at Gamescom, and he got asked a few questions in various interviews, and someone sent this my way to talk about. I've been away for the last week or so I've not been able to get to it yet, but now I am! Although, before that, I love the notion of it was a complete defeat, like it was a competition to see who could do the best collab from each other in their games. Obviously, Final Fantasy got Rathalos, and Rathalos was a mount, so that's really, really cool to see, but yeah, I guess when you do compare it, I can understand where that vibe comes from, but it is definitely amusing. I love to see the passion and the light-hearted, friendly competitiveness of it. In any case, yes, we had a recent interview with him from Gamescom just gone by that we were at, and the question went thus. Capcom recently announced the sequel to Monster Hunter World, Monster Hunter Wilds. Are there perhaps already plans for a new crossover event with Monster Hunter? I would love to be able to hunt a Morbol in Monster Hunter Wilds, or a Legiana in Final Fantasy XIV, for example. So of course he's been asked about Final Fantasy stuff, this happens to have some crossover, with Monster Hunter. The answer then, of course, our teams are in very good contact thanks to the existing crossover, and both sides are very happy with the result. I'm very good friends with the creator of Monster Hunter, Kaname Fujioka, and the director of Monster Hunter Wilds, Yuya Takuda. And I don't want to disturb them in their final work of Monster Hunter Wilds because they are just as passionate about their work as I am. But when we reach a certain point in development and have discussions, there is a possibility that there will be another crossover. It's funny that this question comes up today because just last night I had a drink with Fujioka-san and Takuda-san. So that is really lovely, right? And it's now the second connected piece of this Final Fantasy Monster Crossover Wilds thread that just is gently being pulled on. So if we combine this with the previous quote where he specifically named Bahamut, and then we get to loop round to the start of this video. But in Monster Hunter Wilds. And the thing is, Wilds would be a really good stage for Bahamut. And I feel like there really isn't kind of a more iconic Final Fantasy creature left to bring than that. He is absolutely iconic, and depending on the incarnation of him, can be absolutely colossal. Like, you can have the size of a zone in Monster Hunter Wilds, completely shadowed by him flying overhead, or more accurately, the sort of smaller raid-sized one that you actually fought in Final Fantasy XIV. But however you do it, well, it would be a real go. I mean, he kind of does have the Elder Dragon look, right? The 4 legs and the wings, so you could very easily give that skeleton to him and turn him into one hell of a fight. Probably ordinately above Behemoth, especially as far as I'm aware, he is appreciably stronger than him. So I feel like that would kind of be a lovely step up into it. But I just love the amount of ways that you could totally make this happen. There is a lot in the Final Fantasy dragons, of course, and they really are quite impressive. Obviously a really big crossover between the two audiences too. Hell, there was even a point where you could fight Bahamut and you were stood on his hand. Like, that was the battlefield, and that was the kind of scale you were working with. So you could totally use Bahamut as a siege fight crossover, which I think would be really, really engaging. Something Zora-esque where you climb on it more than specifically one-on-one face it, and that could result in a really neat experience. More than anything though, I would love to get your guys' thoughts on this. The idea of having already this potential plan, of course, even using the word plan is probably too much here, but the idea that what we know for sure is that the Final Fantasy team would love to do another collab. They're good friends with the Monster Hunter team, who would also love to do another collab. There is plenty of prime choices like Bahamut. They're in talks, and undoubtedly they will have mentioned it over a friendly drink, especially with these two quotes 6 months apart to back each other up. So the idea that we might be looking at quite the cavalcade of potential collabs already this far out is really, really fun to me. Honestly, it makes me want to look to other games to see what actually could happen. I do feel like if we get Bahamut in Monster Hunter, we kind of have to here, try a Fatalis, because it feels like that's the kind of equivalent exchange you would want in that situation. But I would love to get your guys' ideas over the best monster in return for such a colossal beast. And more than anything, I would just kind of like to have another monster hunt with raid mechanics, like the meteors, keeping them dropped at the edges of the zone, making sure Behemoth doesn't get to smash them, hiding behind them from the one-shot, actual, yes, MMO-esque raid mechanics, because that's where the crossover is from. So, working in his actual raid fight to it would be lovely. I think it works surprisingly well in Monster Hunter, and I want to see more of it explored. I talked about Behemoth at the time and how it actually is a really cool type of hunt to get, something we've not seen before, and while it obviously feels a bit more gamey because it literally is, this is a thing, this is how you deal with a thing, it's much less fighting a creature, but with how Monster Hunter plays and controls and the flow of it, that works really, really well. Honestly, despite it being in Monster Hunter, Behemoth in Monster Hunter is one of the best raid fights I've ever experienced because of how it played out and how it was set up. So getting that in Wilds, where everything can be turned up to 11, both in scope, scale, the complexity of what's going on, the actual feel of it, that is absolutely brilliantly exciting. So I really just wanted to kind of start this little... maybe going and see what you guys think. And ignoring Final Fantasy, what would be your ideal dream Monster Hunter collab 1-to-1? Obviously Witcher's already happened, which I adored, and I wouldn't say no to another one, but I definitely would prefer to explore more untapped potential when it comes to other games with creatures that would make fantastic huntable, wearable, murderable enemies. Sorry, I just got a little bit huntery there. So what was I saying? Oh, yeah. Okay, so what I would absolutely adore happening is a little bit of an internal Capcom collab. Obviously, I like to choose ones that can realistically happen, and imagine now with Dragon's Dogma 2 and its success, something that might tie into a potential expansion to Dragon's Dogma 2 by putting, like, the dragon, Grigori, as a hunt in Monster Hunter Wilds. The size and the scope is there, and I think that is something that would be really lovely. The precedent is set. Capcom have done many internal collabs. We got so many of them across Rise and Sunbreak, in World and Iceborne 2, and across all their other games. Full-on monsters are a little bit rarer, but look at something like Exoprimal. You full-on got a Rathalos in there, and it was an absolutely incredible encounter. You could have totally seen if there was a current Monster Hunter surging with popularity, not sort of like the downtime waiting for Wilds. We could have got like the Neo T-Rex in return and had one ridiculous battle. So the idea that we might actually be in line for something Dragon's Dogma-y is not outrageous, and in fact makes a lot of sense, both logistically, and it will mesh well within the two worlds. You don't necessarily have to do an equal exchange back and forth. You don't have to put a Monster Hunter monster in Dragon's Dogma, of course, but you could certainly do something. A Palico running around to be like the Witcher Necker equivalent of in Dragon's Dogma 2, you're like, ooh, what's this? But that said, something like doshaguma would be a really fun Dragon's Dogma 2 creature, and you could totally buy it. It's not too outlandish. And that's something that I think is worth keeping an eye on, just as, you know, a wild prediction. In any case, let me know your thoughts on this. Would you do horrible, despicable things for a bit of Bahamut in Monster Hunter Wilds? And I just hope I've been saying all the relevant names correctly this entire time. Like if you enjoyed this, subscribe and hit the bell for more. Consider supporting the future of the channel on Patreon down below. And until we meet again, a goodbye.
Josh, Cotton, and Hollow with the videos, dropping the humor like a hammer on your tippy toes, bringing entertainment on a daily arrangement to take our insanity and turn it into entertainment. Yes, I said entertainment twice, to reiterate that it is nice to look into your faces on a mostly daily basis when you let us in your homes to make the whole world a stage. Goodbye.